The Carrington Lighthouse, isolated, foreboding, perched atop craggy cliffs, it stands as a solitary guardian of the treacherous coastline. The mist often shrouds its towering structure, giving it an almost ethereal presence during the golden hour. For over a century it has stood resolute, a sentinel against the perils of the sea. Its walls, weathered by time and the relentless assault of the elements, tell stories of countless storms and shipwrecks. Mariners once relied on its guiding light to navigate the treacherous waters, finding solace in its unwavering presence. But the sea wasn't the only danger. The lighthouse has witnessed more than just the fury of nature. Dark clouds often gather around it, as if drawn by some unseen force, and the turbulent sea mirrors the turmoil that surrounds this enigmatic structure. Locals spoke of the lighthouse with fear in their eyes. Tales of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena have been passed down through generations. The village nearby is filled with whispers of the lighthouse's haunted past, and many avoid it after dusk, fearing what might lurk in its shadows. Haunted, they said, cursed. The lighthouse's eerie silhouette at dusk only adds to its mystique. Some claim to have seen figures moving within its walls, while others speak of strange lights flickering in the dead of night. The lighthouse stood silent, a dark silhouette against the fading light. As the sun sets, its imposing structure casts long shadows over the cliffs, creating an atmosphere of unease. The twilight hours bring a sense of foreboding, as if the lighthouse itself is watching, waiting. Its beacon, once a lifeline for sailors, was now extinguished, its purpose long forgotten. The light that once pierced through the darkest nights now lies dormant, its glass shattered and its mechanisms rusted. The lighthouse, abandoned and neglected, stands as a monument to a bygone era. The only sound was the crashing of the waves against the rocks below, a constant reminder of the unforgiving nature of the sea. The relentless pounding of the surf echoes through the empty halls of the lighthouse, a haunting symphony that never ceases. The air was thick with salt and the smell of decay. The once vibrant seaside environment now lies in a state of disrepair, with the salty air corroding everything it touches. The mist that rolls in from the sea adds to the sense of desolation, enveloping the lighthouse in a shroud of mystery and melancholy. Claire, a young historian, was drawn to such places with stories to tell. She had heard the whispers, the legends. She didn't believe them, not really. She sought the truth, hidden in the shadows. The lighthouse, she believed, held answers.
I've been fascinated by lighthouses for as long as I can remember. Their isolation, their history, the stories they held within their walls. The Carrington Lighthouse, with its reputation for being haunted, is like a siren call, a chance to delve into the past, to uncover the truth behind the legends.
The night she arrived was stormy. Wind howled, rain lashed, the sea raged. It was as if the island itself was trying to warn her away. But Claire was not deterred. She would face the storm. She would face the lighthouse.
The small boat battled against the waves, each crest threatening to engulf us. I held on tight, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The lighthouse loomed ahead, its dark shape barely visible through the driving rain.
The lighthouse door creaked open, a mournful sound. Inside, darkness. The air was cold, damp. It smelled of salt and something else, something old and musty, something unsettling.
I took a deep breath and stepped inside.
The stone steps were cold and damp beneath her feet. The air grew colder, heavier, the higher she climbed. Each step echoed in the silence, a hollow, lonely sound. The only light came from her flashlight, cutting a narrow beam through the oppressive darkness. She found it on the top floor, a small room, dusty and forgotten. A desk, a chair, and a logbook. The logbook was old, leather-bound, its pages were brittle, the ink faded.
Claire opened it carefully, her fingers trembling slightly. The first entry sent a shiver down her spine.
The handwriting was spidery, almost illegible. It spoke of strange occurrences, of shadows moving in the night, of whispers carried on the wind. The lighthouse keeper, it seemed, had not been alone here. The wind howled around the lighthouse, rattling the windows. The sound was almost a moan, filled with sorrow and despair. Or was it just the wind? Claire wasn't sure.
She felt a cold hand on her shoulder, a presence behind her. She spun around, her heart pounding.
Nothing. There was nothing there. But the feeling remained, a coldness that seeped into her bones. The lighthouse seemed to press in on her, the silence broken only by the howling wind and the pounding of her own heart. She heard it then, a whisper, faint but unmistakable. It seemed to come from the shadows, from the very walls themselves.
Claire.
The voice was low, mournful, and haunting. It sent chills down her spine. Claire froze, her breath catching in her throat. The whisper came again, closer this time.
Claire, go.
It was a warning, she realized, a plea. The air around her crackled with an unseen electric energy. She had to see the lantern room. It was a compulsion, an unexplainable urge that had been growing stronger with each passing day. The stories she had heard, the whispers of a ghostly presence, had drawn her here. She needed to see it for herself, to understand the mystery that surrounded this place. Driven by a force she couldn't explain, she climbed the final flight of stairs. Each step echoed with the weight of history, the creak of the old wood under her feet, a reminder of the countless souls who had walked this path before her. The air grew colder as she ascended, the chill of the storm outside seeping through the walls. The lantern room was circular, windows on all sides. The storm raged outside, the wind howling like a banshee, rain pelting against the glass. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from the occasional flash of lightning. It was both eerie and mesmerizing, a place caught between the past and the present. And then she saw him, a figure, standing by the window. His presence was almost ethereal, a shadow against the storm. She felt a shiver run down her spine, a mix of fear and curiosity. Who was he? Why was he here? Looking out at the storm, he seemed lost in thought, as if the tempest outside mirrored the turmoil within him. She took a hesitant step forward, her heart pounding in her chest. The air was thick with tension, the silence between them almost deafening.
Who? Who are you? Her voice trembled, barely more than a whisper. She wasn't sure if he would respond or if he even heard her at all. The question hung in the air, unanswered as the storm continued to rage outside.
He was tall, dressed in the garb of a sailor from another era. His clothes were worn, tattered by time, yet they held a certain dignity. He turned slowly, his eyes meeting hers. They were filled with a deep sadness, a sorrow that seemed to span centuries. His back was to her, but she could sense his sorrow, his despair. It was as if he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, a burden that had kept him bound to this place. She wanted to reach out, to offer some comfort. But she was rooted to the spot, unable to move. He was as much a part of this place as the stones themselves. The lighthouse had become his prison, a monument to his tragic past. She wondered what had happened to him, what had led him to this fate. The stories she had heard were vague, filled with gaps and inconsistencies, a prisoner of his own tragic past. His eyes told a story of loss, of love and betrayal, of dreams shattered by the relentless march of time. She felt a connection to him, a bond forged by their shared sense of longing. In that moment, she knew she had to uncover the truth, to piece together the fragments of his story and set him free. Terror, primal and consuming, seized her. She stumbled back, her foot catching on the uneven floorboards. She fell, her flashlight clattering away into the darkness. She scrambled to her feet, her only thought escape.
I have to get out, now!
She fled. Down the winding stairs she ran, each step a desperate prayer. She didn't look back, she didn't dare. She burst out into the storm, the rain a welcome relief against her skin. She didn't stop running until she reached her boat. She never returned to the Carrington Lighthouse. The place that once held a sense of adventure and curiosity now only brought back memories of fear and confusion. The experience had marked her deeply, leaving an indelible scar on her soul. Every creak of an old door, every shadow that danced in the corner of her eye, reminded her of that fateful night. The whispers, the shadows, the figure in the lantern room. She couldn't explain them. They were like fragments of a nightmare that refused to fade away, lingering in the recesses of her mind. But she couldn't forget them either. The images were etched into her memory, haunting her dreams and waking moments alike. She often found herself looking back, wondering if it was all real or just a figment of her imagination. The lighthouse remained a solitary sentinel on the cliffs, holding its secrets close. It stood as a silent witness to the events that had transpired, its walls echoing with the unspoken stories of those who had come before, a haunting reminder of the past. The fog that rolled in from the sea seemed to carry with it the voices of the lost, whispering their tales of woe and despair. The waves continued to crash against the rocks, their rhythm unchanged for centuries. They were a constant, a reminder that time moved on, even if the memories remained. The wind howled, carrying with it the whispers of the past. It seemed to speak in a language only the lighthouse could understand, a dialogue between the present and the echoes of history. The Carrington Lighthouse stood alone, its beacon extinguished, a monument to forgotten tragedies and the restless souls that haunted its walls. It was a place where the past and present coexisted, a testament to the enduring power of memory and the mysteries that remain unsolved.